When we're thinking about the literature of the Revolutionary Age, we're used to thinking about the Revolution as an 18th century event, as something that happens in the Age of Enlightenment, which is frequently given the nickname the Age of Reason. And one thing that historians have come to appreciate more recently is that the Age of Reason was also very deeply preoccupied with questions of feeling, of emotion, of passion. And we can't really understand the philosophical debates that people were having about the best way to balance between the individual and the community, between self and society, unless we really concentrate on the intense focus on emotion that was reflected in everything from the rise of evangelical religions, which really posited that emotions were the avenue to God, to the rise of literary forms like the novel, which really foregrounded the exploration of the interior experience, emotional experiences of characters in the novel, to moral philosophy, which posited that emotion, sentiment, was the basis for moral decision-making. Common Sense was the single most important pamphlet to come out of the revolutionary protest movement. It was published in January of 1776, so 6 months before the Declaration of Independence. And it was the first really widespread call for a full break with Britain. Up until the publication of Common Sense, it was much more common for people to have a very measured approach to protest, where colonists would protest against the supervision of Parliament, but declare their loyalty to the king. Thomas Paine's pamphlet Common Sense was revolutionary in the sense that it called for a complete break with Britain. It actually sold enough copies for 1 out of every 5 people in colonial America. So it was a runaway bestseller in its day, like nothing ever seen before in the colonies. And historians have traditionally thought that one of the reasons this call for full independence was so powerful was because of the very moving, emotional language that Paine used. This is a passionate pamphlet. It was denounced at the time for being irrationally passionate by people opposed to the revolutionary movement, and it was appreciated for that very emotionalism by people who enjoyed the pamphlet. One of the points that I make in my book is that this is not just a matter of an effective style, that actually Paine uses this emotional language because the substance of his arguments rely on new ideas about emotion. Whereas in the past, passions were seen as irrational and therefore as servile, therefore as something to be avoided if you were a person of culture and cultivation. Paine says, this is the common legacy of all mankind. All people have feelings, have passions. And so his belief in universal natural rights, in a kind of a common core of human nature, was really based in this idea that all people have the same feelings and the same passions. So very dramatically in the pamphlet, he calls on the passions and feelings of mankind. He asks people to consult the way they feel. He calls it the touchstone of nature, in order to make a decision about whether or not to break with the king. And he says for anyone who can feel, the answer will be obvious, that we should have this revolution.